One of the most persistent struggles for both students and working people is the fact that we almost forget everything we learn, everything we take in. We read books, then forget them all. We sit in meetings with our boss and forget almost everything, except the parts that directly affect our survival. We watch movies, and a few months later, we can barely remember anything beyond the rough storyline. This reality is tied to the way our memory works. Our brains are not designed to store every single detail forever. Instead, they filter information, prioritizing what is useful for survival or emotionally important. For students, this often means we remember exam strategies, but forget deep insights from books. For workers, we recall urgent deadlines, but not the broader vision of a company meeting. Understanding this natural limitation is the first step toward mastering memory instead of fighting against it. We watch countless lectures on YouTube, so much knowledge, and then forget nearly all of it, to the point where many people start to feel discouraged about learning itself. Because if we're just going to forget everything anyway, what's the point of learning? So in this lesson, I'll show you how to completely overcome that problem, how to remember what you learn intensely, persistently, to the point where it sticks like glue, both literally and figuratively. Psychologists call this phenomenon the forgetting curve, a discovery by Hermann Ebbinghaus in the 19th century. He found that newly learned information decays rapidly in the first few days if it is not actively recalled. This explains why so many people feel frustrated. They confuse exposure with learning. Watching a lecture or reading a book feels like learning, but without reinforcement, the memory trace fades almost completely. This is my personal experience. Every lecture I share on Clarity Flame is based on something I've lived through myself. I never share anything that I haven't personally tested. And this is why experience matters. Techniques that look good in theory often collapse in practice if they don't align with how people actually think and remember. When you hear advice from someone who hasn't applied it, it remains shallow. But when guidance comes from lived experience, it carries credibility. I know these methods work because I've tested them on my own mind under real conditions, from stressful presentations to long-term study. Even right now, as I'm giving this lecture, you might think I have slides, or at least a script. But no, I only have a microphone, and I'm speaking straight from memory. That's not carelessness. It's proof that I truly remember what I want to tell you. In fact, if someone suddenly asked me to give a 1-hour presentation on a random topic, I'd only need 1 hour of prep, and I'd deliver it as if I'd been preparing for a whole month. This is an important benchmark. Many people prepare obsessively for talks because they fear forgetting. Yet when you truly internalize knowledge through love, repetition, and recall, speaking becomes natural. Your brain no longer scrambles to remember lines. Instead, it simply flows with understanding. It's like a musician who no longer needs sheet music because the melody lives inside them. So how do we achieve that? I'll share with you 3 steps, 3 simple methods to help you remember deeply so you can actually use what you learn in daily life. Whether it's from a book, a news article, a YouTube lecture, an audiobook, or even just a conversation with a mentor, these steps will make it stick. Step 1. Start with what you love. Interest acts like glue for memory. Neuroscience shows that dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, is released when we engage with things we enjoy. This chemical not only motivates us, but also strengthens neural pathways, making memories more durable. That's why you can still remember small details about your favorite childhood cartoon, but may forget the contents of a textbook chapter you crammed for an exam. Start learning, start choosing what to remember based on what you enjoy. We always remember longest the things we're genuinely interested in.
You can abuse your brain however you like, force-feed it information you don't care about, and it will still forget. But if it's something you love, your brain will hold on to it almost effortlessly. That could be anything, even things people often dismiss like video games or soccer. If you enjoy it and it's not harmful, start there. Once you dive deep into one topic, it naturally branches out. Maybe you start by reading simple game guides. Then one day you think, this character design looks ugly. I wish I could tweak it. And before you know it, you're looking into character design or even game programming. That's how curiosity evolves. Step 2. Just start learning. The most dangerous enemy of memory is hesitation. Many people wait for the perfect method before they start, but memory thrives on repetition and exposure. If you love football, for example, don't just watch highlights. Read interviews, listen to commentaries, compare tactical analyses. The more varied the input, the more connections your brain creates. Knowledge becomes a web, not a single thread, and webs are harder to tear apart. Once you know what you like, just consume it. Read articles, watch videos, listen to podcasts. If you love football, read news about Messi, Ronaldo, Zidane, whoever you admire. If you love business, read business books. It doesn't matter if the books are long or boring to others. If you enjoy it, you'll stay awake and focused. Same goes for films, documentaries, or lectures. Don't worry about fancy methods of reading or tricks. Just start. Enjoy it.
Step 3. Recall what you learned. Recall transforms passive information into active knowledge. Think of it as exercising a muscle. Reading is like eating food, but recall is digestion. It turns raw intake into usable energy. One powerful strategy is active recall, closing the book and testing yourself without notes. Another is spaced repetition, revisiting what you learned days or weeks later to refresh the memory trace before it fades. Both techniques are scientifically proven to extend retention dramatically. This is the crucial part that locks the knowledge into your brain so well you might not forget it even after 5 years. In psychology, recall means remembering by deliberately calling information back to mind. And this, my friends, is the simplest and most powerful memory technique. After you read an article, a book chapter, or watch a lecture, don't just move on. Spend time deliberately recalling it. Ask yourself a single question. What was the part I found most interesting? The part I enjoyed most? For example, if you spend an hour reading a book, split it into 30 minutes of reading and 30 minutes of reflecting on that one question. The act of recalling what you loved triggers your brain to imprint it much more deeply because it's tied to genuine interest and emotion. You can apply this to anything: a 15-minute lecture, a 90-minute movie. Afterward, spend equal time thinking, which part did I enjoy most? Do this seriously and you'll be amazed. You'll remember things vividly years later. A real-life example. Real-life stories are vital because they create emotional anchors. We remember them not only for their facts, but for the feelings they evoke. That Zidane story is compelling because it illustrates respect, humility, and leadership. The human brain is wired to remember narratives much better than abstract information. This is why parables, myths, and stories have survived thousands of years. They are vehicles of memory. Years ago, I read an article about Zinedine Zidane, titled "The Man Chosen by History." At first glance, it seemed like just a sports piece, but I took it seriously. I read it slowly, then spent time reflecting on what I found most interesting. The story was about how Zidane earned Cristiano Ronaldo's respect. Normally, star players like Ronaldo don't easily listen to coaches, especially inexperienced ones. But Zidane didn't force him. Instead, he challenged Ronaldo to a free kick contest. Ronaldo, being fiercely competitive, accepted and lost badly. That moment made him realize, this coach is no joke. He's someone worth listening to. And from then on, Ronaldo respected Zidane deeply. When I recalled this story, I saw a lesson for my own business. As a leader, I must prove through action. Even if it's something small like delivering packages, I need to show my team I can do it properly myself. That's how you earn loyalty and respect. That article was only about 1,000 words, but I'll never forget it. Imagine if a short article can give me one unforgettable lesson, then a 300-page book can give you 100 lessons if you pause every few pages to reflect on what you loved most. Write it down, even just a sentence. That's how knowledge becomes unforgettable. This shows that the length of material is less important than the depth of engagement. A short poem, if reflected upon deeply, can change your worldview more than an entire encyclopedia skimmed quickly. It's about pausing, asking questions, and finding personal meaning. The stronger the connection, the harder it is to forget. Conclusion. When we summarize knowledge, we condense it into principles that are portable. These principles act as handles, allowing us to retrieve entire experiences from a few words. For example, the principle "prove through action" might instantly bring back the Zidane story. The brain loves such shortcuts because they maximize efficiency. Over time, your mind becomes not just a storage space, but a library of principles tied to vivid examples. So, here's the summary. 1. Choose topics you genuinely enjoy. 2. Read, watch, or listen. Just start. 3. Afterwards, spend time recalling and asking yourself, what was the part I enjoyed most? Then write it down. Do this, and 5 years later, you'll remember. Repeat it again after 6 months or a year, and you'll remember for a lifetime. Eventually, you'll become a completely different person, a person who truly knows, truly grows, and truly enjoys the happiness that knowledge can bring. Thank you for reading. See you in the next Clarity Flame lecture.